Ready when you are.
All right, well, let's get started. Today is the April 28th board meeting for the Board of Waterworks Trustees. And we're gonna get started with our consent agenda first, which includes the minutes from March 24th, 2026 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes from the April 7th, 2026 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, minutes from the April 14th, 2026 Planning Committee meeting, the list of financial statements, the list of payments for March 2026, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $50,000, and our next meeting date of May 26, 2026. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And then we're gonna do a finance update.
I want to spend this finance update on the statement of earnings, which is page number 5 in the financial statements. Overall results for March were very strong. Water sales were 5.1 million, and this is better than budget by 695,000. Operating expenses were 4.6 million, and this is better than budget by 432,000. Some of this is timing, but overall things are very favorable when looking towards budget. Our net change in earnings for March was a positive 656,000, and this is 932,000 better than budget. Year to date, we have a positive change in net earnings of 486,000. I want to spend most of my time talking about things that you're going to see at the bottom of the statement. So for the bottom of the statement, you'll notice that we had a net change in investment values for March of a negative 765,000. And this is what is called an unrealized loss. And it is called unrealized because we've not actually incurred or realized anything. This is because we're required to value our investments at fair market value. We now have more than $70 million in investments because of our capital project funds. And those funds are invested as we do all of our funds in the US government securities, but they have longer maturities because we're looking to use those funds over a number of years. Because they have longer maturities, that makes their volatility a little bit stronger. When the interest rates change, their value will change. So chances are we're going to see some movement in there on a month-to-month basis as we move forward, but that is completely unrealized. We hold our bonds to maturity, and so we're not going to ever realize those losses given that. But just so you know that that'll be out there. The other thing I wanted to briefly talk about is something that I'm excited about, and then that is the bottom box, the bottom of the page. I get excited about things like that. I know other people don't, but I am very excited because this is going to allow us to have some comparability month to month and year to date looking at last year. Because although this isn't true cash basis, it gets us closer to cash basis. So for example, if we look at March, we start with the change in net earnings of 655,000. We add back depreciation because that's not going to be settled in cash. We eliminate that investment value change because we're not going to realize that it's not going to be settled in cash. So we get to a change in net earnings of an overall positive $2 million as compared to the budget. So we're ahead 1.7. And the thing that I'm excited about is that makes the comparability to last year a little easier with that loss that we had on the bringing in CIWW. So taking that into consideration, we're $1.7 million better than we were a year ago this time. The other thing I just want to point out is we are in the process of finalizing our carry forward amounts. So you'll see those in next month's board packet for our project financials. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements?
On the water sales year to date, we're $1.5 million over year to date last year. How much of that is rates versus demand? I know we had a pretty hot March.
We did have a pretty hot March. I guess I haven't parsed that apart between the two, but if you look at kind of where we were, but our budget last year was compared pretty strong as to what budget flopped out month to month as it was last year. So the fact that we budgeted, 4.4 million for water sales and we're better than that by 695,000, I think that's pretty close to saying what's the difference between rates and where we thought we'd be versus having a strong March.
The change in the investment values that you mentioned, this is because we're just reporting this internally into the board each month. We don't necessarily, this is not any kind of like audited published financial thing. It's just FYI. Okay. So that's
essentially as if we sold everything at the end of the month, we would realize that loss. Yep.
Right. And you're just marking it at the end or whatever
Mhm.
presumably the end of March for our purposes.
Right.
Accounting rules require that.
Yes.
Okay.
We call it noise.
My other question was on the purchase services. So I understand the timing on these projects, but we're now $8.4 million under budget year to date. I
Yes.
understand that's netted out with transfers to capital.
Mhm.
Should the board take that as an indication that we're behind on projects? That's a pretty big dollar amount.
A lot of that is timing. Lindsay's just starting to get ramped up on some of her projects. And so budgeting the timing of capital projects is a little more sensitive on a month-to-month basis. So that's mainly just timing. I think Lindsay can chime in. I think we're pretty well on track.
That construction season starting, so, yeah.
So safe to say we're a little bit aggressive on our budgeting for when we would be cutting those POs for construction projects.
It's just on the timing of when they're gonna cut the POs, when they're gonna ask for reimbursement, when we're gonna
But
do
do
the
you
work.
budget, it just straight line across?
That one is closer to straight line.
They just divide the budget by 12, so.
That's something, this is the first year that we've done the budget, on a month-to-month basis, and we're gonna get better at it as we go and we learn and we grow. So my guess is, as we move forward, we'll get closer and closer to having that not be so choppy.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had one edit on the minutes
Mhm.
for our last board meeting on the 24th. We're missing Emily as a board
Yes.
member attendee.
Thank you. She also emailed that. We could make that correction.
All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And thanks for joining us, Emily, from wherever you were dialing in from.
Yep. Glad you can hear me. Thanks.
All right, so we'll move on to our agenda items for one waterworks, starting with item A, request authorization to solicit bids for the 2020. Oh, wait, no, I skipped. I was like, I'm doing something wrong. It felt weird. Public comment period. Sorry. We do have a public comment period now, so if you're either in the room or online and wish to speak to the board, this is your time to do so. Please either come up to the podium or raise your hand online. Seeing no individuals, we'll close the public comment period and now move on to our Moines Waterworks action items. Starting with the request authorization to solicit bids for 2026 Hazen concrete restoration and repair and establish the date of the public hearing at the date of the June 2026 board meeting.
Hazen Water Tower is a concrete storage facility that is in the Beaverdale area. You might be familiar with it. It's historical. It's on the National Register of Historic Places and is an important part of our distribution system. A condition assessment done a couple years ago recommended that some of the concrete to be repaired on that water tower. And not doing so could pose a safety risk from falling concrete, which sounds bad. So this project includes the complete repair of the cornice concrete, some concrete repairs in several areas across the columns and entablature. There is a graph or a schematic design on the attached to this board memo to kind of show where that is talking. It's about midway through that design, so you can see what pieces of this facility we're talking about. It also includes rehabilitation of that cornice railing and then some waterproofing membrane between the tank and the cornice. Few alternates are also considered to address other items that are not as structurally significant if they fall within budget. Alternate 1 is repair of the base concrete slab and steps, and alternate 2 is crack and joint sealing. And the estimate for those alternates are listed as $73,800 and $43,400. respectively. The engineer's estimate for the concrete project itself is $810,900. So we are requesting authorization to solicit bids for this project and to establish the public hearing date as the date of the June 2026 board meeting.
All right. I have a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for the 2026 Hazen concrete restoration and repair and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the June 2026 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
So moved.
Second. Have we had any incidents with concrete debris falling from there?
I believe concrete has fallen, but nobody has been injured.
And it's fenced to some degree, it looks like currently.
The facilities.
Yes. A very unique structure.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to item number B. Request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for 2026 Fluor Drive median maintenance.
Thank you, Alec. For a number of years, Des Moines Waterworks has performed maintenance on the Fluor Drive medians, in part as an agreement with the city of Des Moines, 2080 agreement that was entered into in 2016. And over the years, our staff initially did that maintenance. Over the years, it became evident that there were some safety risks, frankly, in such high trafficked areas being in those medians. And so we began to outsource the planting and maintenance of the landscaping within those medians in 2020. At the time, we solicited proposals for that median work, and we contracted I'll Do It, LLC, in April of 2020. I believe there's an incorrect date in the board memo. And I'll Do It has been doing it since 2020. And so it is time to, it was time to go out for another bid. We had 4 respondents: I'll Do It LLC, Caldenberg's PBS Landscaping and Lawn Care, Stone Cross Lawn and Landscaping, and Murnus Korvac Lawn Care. Their bids or total costs are listed there. I'll Do It LLC is the first one listed at $129,685. We had a team review each proposal based on typical criteria. And that team recommended that we execute another agreement with I'll Do It LLC for their amount of $129,685 for 2026 Fluor Drive median maintenance. We've been pleased with the work that they've provided, since they've been working for us, and they also provide services at some of our remote facilities like mowing and so forth. So we are requesting authorization for the CEO and general manager to execute an independent contractor agreement with I'll Do It in the amount of $129,685 for the 2026 Fluor Drive median maintenance project. And it does allow for automatic renewal of the agreement for 2 one-year terms unless either party provides notice that it will not continue.
All right, can I have a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute an independent contractor agreement with I'll Do It LLC in the amount of $129,685 for the 2026 Fluor Drive median maintenance project?
So
Second.
do they, when they provide these proposals, are they giving any additional information regarding the cost justification? I'm just wondering how some of the lower bids can be so much lower than the highest bids. Are they hand trimming or just okay? All right.
I don't know, I didn't see the proposals, but that is quite a range. There, you know, there are two that are fairly close together, and
Sure, sure.
that does give us some comfort, I guess.
Well, and a comfort knowing that they've done it before and
We've been pleased.
we've been pleased with the work that they do. Okay, thank you.
So, do we have a cost history since we started letting this out for bid as to what these costs have been?
I did look at last year's just to see what it compared to, and it's 154,885. And this year it's 129,685, so that kind of tells me that the bidding kind of helps drive that price down, and then there'll be 3 renewals and then we'll bid again. And it probably keeps it down by bidding. But I did look at last year. We could probably look at the historical, but I just looked at last year.
Anybody have any idea from when we took this out for bid? What kind of costs these? I know we didn't have all of them in there to begin with, did we? Because
The median, yeah,
Yeah.
all of the medians, because
Yeah.
what is there, 17? Yeah, because we only did partial
Yeah,
medians.
so it would be hard to,
Compare.
yeah.
We can provide a history if that's helpful through the years, but you know, we prefer this outsourcing because of the safety.
Oh, I understand that. I understand that, but I also understand that this is an agreement we have with the city to do this, which is kind of a gratis thing that we do, so it's important to me to look at the cost. That. But if it's, I mean, less than it was last year, but I think we need to keep an eye on that, because if it gets up to $400,000 to do these.
You know, and I don't think I ever thought, put the dots together, that this is something that we do for the city. And we originally agreed to do it for the city because it was our folks going out there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was in the vicinity and all kind of made
Yeah.
sense. And now we contract it out, and is that something that the city just as easily could do, is contract out that service, especially if our costs keep getting more and more on that.
I'd have to revisit the agreement to know what the language and the termination clause is. It's a fair question.
Sure, and I'm not necessarily arguing in favor for that at the moment. I'm just, thinking about kind of along Diane's lines of as keeping a pulse on how much this is costing us.
So the history here is that, at one point they asked us to do this because we already had grounds crews in the area working. And when we said, sure, well, we can do this maintenance. And then at some point we took a look and said, wait, this is actually pretty dangerous. We don't really think our staff should be doing it. So now we're contracting them out. But then therefore we're also paying the contractor's bills.
But we've been doing it for years. They've been planting, and they're beautiful. They are.
And then are they all the planters irrigated now? Wasn't that a project? So that they don't have to
All of
water
them.
them.
Jessica shared that. Yeah.
Do we still have a truck that waters some of
The
the?
tips are still watered
Okay.
on that. And so I think that was one thing we did take out of this year's contract is the watering, because we have a truck. And so we are going to do the watering ourselves with our truck, because that was a big part of the cost of that. We thought we could do it cheaper with the equipment that we have. And they would have a trailer and park a vehicle on the side where we can drive down the road and spray. But those, because they're being replaced on a frequent basis seasonally, they do not have an in-ground irrigation in them. But the rest of them, as part of the Fluor Drive project, did get irrigation for the parts that aren't getting
Changed
replaced
out each-
seasonally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought the watering was part of the dangerous part of doing this, being out there.
I think it was the plantings and
Weeding.
the removal of weeding and things like that when they were shutting down lanes of traffic, and there was an accident that occurred in the construction zone during that period.
What is the start date on the new contract?
It's this year, so this planting season, it's maintenance season. I don't know. if it's
So it's
April.
retroactive?
Scott's online. He worked on with this agreement. Scott, do you know the date of the contract start?
We can get that for you. I'm guessing it's as soon as it's signed and
Okay. And then my other question was around the automatic renewal. I assume is at the same rate as this amount?
No, I think they usually will come back to the board every year with the new amount.
New rate, okay.
But we will just approve their, either approve or reject. the
Yeah,
new
yeah,
round. We
they'll
won't
give us
actually
new-
RFP it out to
Okay.
people. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On
A
to
vote from Emily. Is Emily voting? She,
I have not heard her vote as of yet. We will not count her votes until now. Emily,
You can, sorry, I'm good. I voted on the first one, but not, yeah. So yes,
did you vote on the consent?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we will forego A and B, or no, we got you on B. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emily.
I pulled up one of the amendments to the agreement, and it looks like they run through December. So if we ran out the last agreement December 2025, we may not currently have an agreement with them. Would be my guess as to what the current contract status is. So if we hadn't approved it, I think we may well have not had anybody to do this work.
that's correct.
Okay, item C, request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for 2026 custodial services.
You have an updated board memo
yes.
at your place on this one. We went out for an RFP for custodial services for the general office, grounds building, park buildings, and the Fluor Drive plant buildings. We've been served by FBG under a 3-year contract, and that expires June 1st of 2026. We had 5 respondents to the RFP that are listed there. And the reason that this is revised is because one of the respondents' response was caught in our firewall. And so we did not get the response. And so we have changed or revised this board memo in front of you to include them. They are that first one listed there, Cleaning Connection for $141,000. Proposals were evaluated by staff members, and the evaluation criteria again were the customary criteria: experience, qualifications, expertise, references, cost. There were multiple evaluators. They scored them independently. And you can see here how the awarding points were given to the different respondents. Citywide scored the highest at 88.67. Based on the evaluation results, staff recommends awarding the custodial services to Citywide for the period of June 2026 through June 2027 in the amount of $186,216. I will note that they are not the lowest cost. We consider them the lowest responsible respondent. And so that is the basis for our recommendation. In terms of Cleaning Connection, the one that was added to this once we discovered them, caught in the firewall, they are the lowest cost. However, they are fairly small, and we have a lot of space and a lot of facilities to clean. And so there's a scope of work consideration there. So we are, as I said, recommending citywide.
Can I have a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute an agreement with Citywide Solutions in the amount of $186,216 per year for the custodial services from June 2026 to June 2027?
So moved.
Second.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Andrew.
I just, it just popped out of my head. So go ahead and I'll try to recall while you speak.
Who has been doing our cleaning?
SBG. Second one.
What's the thought behind just a 1-year contract for this?
I think especially, we learned with prior contracts just to ensure that we're satisfied with the services and that it's working from the perspective of both parties.
So that's kind of a this year decision since FBG was a 3-year contract before. I see they're
That's right.
scored fairly on the lower end.
That's right. Based on it. Yeah.
My question was actually about the firewall and how we have a process for regularly checking that, thinking through other things that we put out for bid, and is there a chance anything else would get caught in there?
Pat?
What? Sir.
The firewall.
This is gonna be an IT.
Yeah.
Monitoring the firewall.
Andrea's question is, how are we confident that the firewall doesn't affect other responses, other proposals and
I mean, usually, are we talking email coming in? Yeah, I mean, that would get blocked by Microsoft 365 as opposed to the firewall. So there's routing that gets done there. And so sometimes those will go into quarantine, but we can check those.
I think we can help manage some of this by requiring the respondents, by telling the respondents, we will confirm that we have received your proposal. And if you don't get confirmation, then there may be an issue that we want to follow up on. So
Sure.
How did we find this one?
I believe, and I don't know for certain, but I believe the contractor, the proposer reached out, perhaps having read this memo and saw they weren't included. And then we investigated.
So the primary reason for choosing Citywide over Cleaning Connection was lower. I understand FBG, there's a reason they scored lower. Was it just the scope of capabilities to be able to?
Yeah, it was those criteria, experience, qualifications, expertise, reference, and cost. So all of that, when you develop a composite score, Citywide scored highest. And at least in terms of the selection committee. So FBG, we have experience, and so that can be helpful in making a selection.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
thank you.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to the request ratification to change order number that
1 through 9.
1 through 9, and authorization for CEO and general manager to execute change order number 10 to 2024 PCPS Aquifer Storage and Recovery Well Bid Package 2 Well Pump and Control Building.
As you, I'm sure all know, we are constructing an ASR and we are working on the well pump and control building. You might recall we drilled the well last year and we've moved on in this project. Hinkle Construction is performing this part of the project for us. We have had some change orders, and those are categorized in this board memo based on the type of or cause of change order. 1 through 9 change orders totaled $92,741.79. We have another change order that is coming here for additional costs for construction delays for conduit material design changes. And with this change order number 10, it brings the total, the aggregate total of all of those change orders to $121,000, which is just under the CEO's spending authority. And so if there were another change order that were to occur, and we are not aware of one, but if there were, we would have to stop work until we could get the board's approval on that change order, because it would push us past presumably the $125,000 threshold. And so with this action, we are asking for the board to ratify change orders 1 through 9 and authorize change order number 10. Change order number 10 is for $28,278.47. So with all of those change orders, the original contract sum is $5,216,000, and the change orders would bring it up to $5,337,020.26. This project is being funded through an SRF loan.
Can I have a motion to ratify change orders 1 through 9 and authorize the CEO and general manager to execute change order 10 to the 2024 PCPS Aquifer Storage and Recovery Well Big Package 2 well pump and control building and an additional amount of $28,278.47.
So moved.
Second.
Just as a check-in on all this, I know we're this is a little bit of just managing authorizations and resetting some stuff so that we don't incur emergency declarations needed or
Right, we're
stoppages.
trying to avoid emergency
Right.
declarations and do things through the process as intended.
Otherwise, I think from just kind of overall projects, anything to note other than change orders happen and we just have to deal with them as they come through. I know
Change
there's been
orders.
some issues that unforeseen on this, but
Yes, the first phase or the first bid package, you might recall, was there was lost circulation issues, and there was an emergency declaration that this board ratified, but it was rather large. And so, yeah, I just prefer not to do emergency declarations, which is why we're asking for ratifications on change orders 1 through 9. And so effectively, this would reset it, and it would no longer, we would be starting at 0 as we aggregate any future change orders. I believe the ASR will be complete this year,
Yeah,
correct?
that's why I was gonna give a construction update.
that
be
would
great.
be my other question.
So they are working diligently to get the project completed. So their schedule shows like maybe another month or 2 and they'll be done. And then we'll do the injection this fall. So essentially they'll be close to being done within a couple months. So, and just put that in perspective, the 121,000 is like 2% of the contract. So we wouldn't think that it's excessive for this big of a contract, there things come up and changes need to be made for design or for unknowns.
That was gonna be my question. When they provide us their cost estimates, do they have a contingency line in there that we're eating out of, or are these change orders?
It's what it costs. So they'll separate out in labor, materials, and they have overhead and profit, which they're allowed by a contract, and then the bond and stuff, but they'll have it all itemized. And then if we aren't comfortable, we'll ask them for more supporting information or negotiate.
Okay, but the original project doesn't have a contingency amount built into.
Well, we're hoping that our estimate will cover any kind of, overage, right?
Sure.
Yeah, our budget will include something hopefully to cover that, yeah.
This is an operational question. ASRs take a little bit before they are fully operational, right? We do testing before we can get the full amount out of them. And so we know ASRs are becoming increasingly important to the Des Moines Waterworks and frankly to the region. And so at what point, how many years will this be fully operational? And I'll look at,
Nathan.
I saw Lindsay
I looked at
lateral this to Nathan.
He knows
Nathan
more
loves
about
ASRs.
operations than I do.
How long?
I'm a big fan. 3 to 5 years before you start getting, so the first year you'll inject 300 million gallons. You may get half of that back out, and then it just slowly gets better for about 3 to 5 years, depending on the well.
And is that just because it's the water seeping into other areas and saturating the?
So remember the aquifer's already full of water,
Mhm.
and so you're injecting down, you're trying to push that water out. And the more years you do that, the more of it you get pushed out. And so eventually, so that first year, as you're drawing it back out, you start getting more of that natural water, which is what we don't want.
How do you know? Okay.
We're constantly
How do you know
testing
what good
Yeah,
water versus
We're
bad?
constantly testing it. And so the first year you get more of the natural water. The next year you push more of that natural water away. And then you can pull more of your water back. And so there's a zone where it's mixed. Does that make sense? So as you're injecting it, there's a zone that's your water and then a zone where it's mixed, and that mixed zone gets farther and farther away.
Oh.
And you eventually get to the point where you can get about 95% of the water you put in back out.
Wow.
But that 95%, that takes, a lot of years, but usually after 3 to 5 years, you'll get 90 or 90 somewhere in there back.
My other question then, and maybe I'm misunderstanding some of this stuff, but with the high nitrates over the winter, I thought we didn't quite get all our ASRs filled. And are we adding more capacity that's going to be difficult to fill in the winter if we continue to experience high nitrates year round? Is my question.
Don't give Nathan a soapbox.
Yeah. That is something we're very concerned about, being able to fill all the ASRs. Now, so when you say we didn't get them full, McMullen last year failed. You may remember an emergency requisition that you approved. So it didn't get full because of that failure. So we started injecting later and we weren't be able to inject as much. It's going to probably get to about 75-80% full. LP Moon and Army Post are over 90% full. And what we've been doing is today, this last weekend, where we have lower demands, lower nitrates because of rain, we get as much water in there as we can. Mm-hmm. So it's still possible that we'll get them full, but like LP Moon is, over 95% full. So that's not bad.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
But so this ASR that we are talking about is Des Moines Waterworks ASR. The other ones you're talking about, they
Are
belong
regional.
to CIWW.
This would be our only ASR for Des Moines Waterworks.
Right.
And then
This one won't transfer to.
that's right. It will be ours.
What's the rationale for having one that stays with?
Just so we can help manage our peak demand. It's a very cost-effective way
Mm-hmm.
to have peak water for
Remind
maximum day.
me, did the other communities keep their ASR wells or did everybody have to transfer them?
Ankeny has an ASR.
They have several. They kept theirs, and nobody else really had one. Waukee had one or has one, and they kept theirs. I think that was in construction. It's finally operational, right? But it was in construction while we were regionalizing. West Des Moines Waterworks is constructing an ASR. We are constructing an ASR, and Urbandale Water Utility plans to construct an ASR. They haven't started yet. The 28EF allows for those ASRs to be constructed. We have to manage the number of ASRs we have for that very reason of wintertime demand and maintenance, and it takes water to fill them along while we're doing other things in the winter. So the 28E limits.
So the water we're filling them with is treated water. that is essentially good to go when we need it.
So this is an important project for Des Moines Waterworks, and it will help us, as I said, manage our maximum day going forward.
Mhm.
Oh dear, who's?
Yeah, interested, I guess it just brings up the topics of ASRs, which can in general add a lot more questions, not specifically related to these change orders. Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
I
Any opposed?
Aye.
We are to E, the approval of the revised water use plan.
All right, this was the topic of the planning committee in April. Tammy Madsen, the executive director of Central Iowa Waterworks, attended and reviewed this water use plan, especially the red line changes. So there's a good background on here. As you recall, in 2025, Central Iowa Waterworks implemented stage 3, which was a lawn watering ban because of the high nitrate concentrations in all of our multiple primary sources. At the same time that customer demand was really high. And so CIWW led an after action review of this process with stakeholders, and some enhancements or some revisions to the water use plan were identified. And so that is what was reviewed at the planning committee meeting. Des Moines Waterworks then has and I should preface this, we have called it in the past a water shortage plan, and that title has now been changed to water use plan, but it's the same basic plan. The water use plan is in our customer rules and regulations. And so we need to update our Des Moines Waterworks water use plan so that it complies with the new CIWW regional plan. And so attached to this board memo is a red line copy of the revisions that will need to be made to the Des Moines Waterworks specific water use plan. And it complies in all material respects with the CIWW plan. However, this one has been adjusted to be more customer focused for our customers. It takes out what Central Iowa Waterworks will do. It takes out what other member agencies will do as we start to enact the stages. And it focuses on what we are asking our customers to do at each stage so that it's user-friendly, customer-friendly, and customers, it's clear to customers what they can do. So there are mostly red as you look through here. Although the plan itself, still has stages 1 through 4, 25% voluntary reduction for stage 1, stage 2 is 50% voluntary reduction, stage 3 is no lawn watering, et cetera. Just to get it to comply with the new version. And, we basically had in our prior rules and regs, the regional version. And so that's one change that we're making here is to make this more Des Moines Waterworks specific. We are asking for this board's approval on the revisions of section 515 of the rules and regulations, which is the water use plan, effective May 1st, 2026.
Can I have a motion to approve the revisions to section 515 of the rules and regulations, water use plan effective May 1st, 2026, with authorization for staff to make non-substantive or minor administrative edits as necessary prior to implementation?
So moved. Second.
Got you, guys.
So what last year, I know we if I recall, we had similar type staging, maybe not without the coloring, but the voluntary that then quickly moved to kind of actual lawn watering bans. do we get a sense of how much the voluntary reduction actually reduced demand? Did we get enough data on that? Like,
We did not see reduction in demand.
and that's, yeah, and kind of where I'm
But it
wondering.
went quickly.
That's what I was, because my memory is it was like, we did it, it said, hey, please stop watering your lawn. No, not many people listened. The water got worse. We said, hey, really stop watering your lawn. Not many listened. They said, okay, now you actually can't water your lawn. And I guess the question, kind of where I'm going with this is like, can we expect that, stage, 1 and 2 are gonna be pretty soft in their effect, and that if we have to go to 1, we should almost be basically saying we're gonna be at 3 almost guaranteed.
I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that. We always hope that customers respond to that call for voluntary action, and to reduce their lawn watering, to no more than 20, no more than they need, and to reduce it by these percentages that are in the stages. So it really depends on how customers respond. If everyone adheres to that and observes it, then, our hope is that we would avoid escalating. But we all know, as we learned last year, conditions are dynamic. And our primary objective, our mission is to keep the drinking water safe. And so we make tough decisions in order to do that.
I'll just say this out, like last year, and I think we went through the stages fairly quickly. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to communicate with people after people had the experience last year. That will be different this year.
Correct.
And so when we say, can you do it voluntarily? There may be a different mindset towards it than there was last year when we're talking about really ramping up education on what people can do in order to reduce, because saying reduce 25%, reduce 50%, what's that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So there will be a constant, education on what it means, what smart irrigation means, things that you can do. And then when the stages are called, then a press release will go out and the public will be aware that we're on there. But I think that's true, right?
Yeah.
But the education will be taking place.
Yeah.
And we are coordinating the educational messages so that it will be a regional kind of message. I don't know, Melissa, if you have anything to say about that.
It's working on some shared materials that CIWW is developing.
Yeah.
This plan, one difference from the prior version is that it, to Diane's point, it does introduce a stage 0, which is water best practices, something that we're going to be talking about all the time. And especially as we start to near spring. So just, what can customers do to be wise water users? And, what are those best practices? So really focused, as Diane said, on that education.
So I think there has been, I know that Tammy has been several times to the lawn and whatever that organization is. And a lot of groups are very eager to understand what can we do to avoid what happened.
Yeah, and that's good. I hope, like you said, the difference this year is done it at least 1 year now. So I guess we're curious to see, because I know that I remember us talking last summer that the actual ban really did have a significant impact on demand, which we needed it to, which is good. I'm just curious, and to your point, we'll find out what history and better education can teach people this year. But in order to hopefully avoid the same thing where we have to quickly progress through the stages and people get very upset because it's moving faster than we can communicate.
One of the primary things that we learned last year was we should be communicating early and often. And so I think that rings with your comments. Try to avoid the quick escalation. Conditions can change quickly too.
Yeah.
And I think to remember our rate change into an inclining rather than a declining rate just went into effect for residential customers. Was last year the first year of that?
Yep.
So
Do we know by chance what across the member agencies, what the average household use is? What I mean, like, are there, how do I want to phrase this? Like, everyone living in Des Moines, what is the average water use amount? And everyone living in West Des Moines, what their average use is? Because my next question goes to, with all of our flume data that we've been collecting, or that flume collects, what's the next highest water use beyond irrigation?
After irrigation.
Toilets are the next highest water use of you're seeing and from the flume data that you're seeing, you'd be surprised at how much toilets are using and things like that. But we didn't see a lot of irrigation, obviously, last year with the ban, so we weren't able to use the flume to be able to see all of that. But toilets are a big part of a percentage of the home's water use.
So then, things you might do as a best practice is run some kind of incentive program to get people to change out their old toilets.
Right.
Or the more
Efficient.
water efficient
Right.
ones, things like low flow shower heads and
Right.
those kinds of things. And there are different programs you can put into place, but those are longer term kinds of things. I guess you could say don't flush your toilet once a day.
Say there's some other approaches you could take.
Lindsay's not liking that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I will just add, I should have mentioned before, none of our enforcement practices have changed with this. We were already well established with our enforcement practices in line with the regional plan.
When in stage 4, which is the water emergency, the rationing.
Yes.
So there's a description here on how that monthly water ration is calculated.
Mhm.
How do I know as a residential customer that I've exceeded my ration?
We have never rationed. And so I think that's important to note. And so we've never put this into practice. Our billing system, we did just upgrade our billing system. We probably want to vigorously retest to make sure that calculation works. But there is nothing on the statements currently that say, your average or wintertime usage is this. So if we ever got to this stage, there would be more work to do here.
To actually implement it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was programmed into our billing system, like I mentioned, and a lot of testing occurred, but sometimes when you upgrade, things don't upgrade cleanly. And we've just done that within the last several months, so.
I will say this, that, we had one experience last summer, and this change revision is a result of that experience. I think it will remain a work in progress for the next years if we have another event this year, we'll probably do an after action review and say, what can we do? What needs to be changed? How can we refine this and make it better for people? So this is the best available. If something happens and we didn't address it, I don't think it's a failure. I think it's just another learning opportunity. Yeah, another learning opportunity.
All right. There are no further other questions. Let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We'll move on to our CIWW agenda items, starting with number A, acceptance of 2024 Lyric Drive Water Treatment Plant Treatment Basin Rechaining Project 2025 contract.
This is a work that has been completed, and so we are asking for the board to accept this work in the amount of, the contract was awarded in the amount of $691,300 for a treatment basin rechaining project. And that was a multi-year contract, which was fairly new to us. This might have been one of our first ones, this and the next agenda item. And so we have completed the 2025 contract, which included the replacement of chains and flight boards and other treatment basin equipment and materials in basin number 2 here at the Fluor Drive plant. And so we are recommending acceptance of this project. And I will note that members of the Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee were briefed on this recommendation, as we do for all of these actions that we bring to you that relate to Central Iowa Waterworks assets.
Can I have a motion to accept the 2024 Fluor Drive Water Treatment Plant Treatment Basin Rechaining Project 2025 contract completed by Woodruff Construction LLC in the amount of $224,176.
So moved.
Second.
There are no questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item B, acceptance of the 2024 Well Rehabilitation Project 2025 contract.
This is a similar situation. At that same board meeting in 2024, this board awarded a contract to Lane Christensen Company in the amount of $1,648,208 for well rehab projects. The contract included bids for 3 years, 24, 25, and 26. The 25 contract included routine maintenance and cleaning of well screens in the radial collector well at McMullen Water Treatment Plant, which is well number 4. Maintenance performed was to restore well capacity and just removing some naturally occurring buildups and so forth. So this work has also been completed satisfactorily. And we recommend acceptance of this contract in the amount of $507,526.
A motion to accept the 2024 Well Rehabilitation Project 2025 contract completed by Lane Christensen Company in the amount of $507,026.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Emily?
Sorry, aye, boarding a plane. Aye.
And finally, agenda item C, the 2026 Des Moines Waterworks data backbone improvement. Oh, this is a public hearing. All right, so I will open the public hearing for comments from the public regarding the form of contract plans and specifications and estimated cost.
I've received no written or
Okay.
oral comments.
Yeah. This one slipped by me, so I was like, oh wait, I didn't get my
That's
head,
all right.
I didn't get my head in the public hearing space. All right. If there are no comments, I will now close the hearing. And I will seek a motion for the adoption of form contract plans and specifications and estimated cost.
So moved.
Dies for lack of a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We do vote there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, and now move on to the analysis of bid.
Okay.
That's right.
Yes, yeah, you are. Without a cheat sheet.
I had it down where I was like, damn, like when I get in the mindset, I know what I'm doing.
A couple months ago, this board authorized staff to solicit bids for the 2026 SCADA Backbone Improvements Project and established a date of public hearing for tonight. This project includes construction of a new secure SCADA backbone, which makes use of trying to separate IT or separating IT, OT, which is operational technology, and into a demilitarized zone. known as a DMZ. So this is really dealing with cybersecurity primarily, security measures. So improvements include an upgraded network infrastructure, firewalls and switches, server virtualization, and some other improvements such as HVAC, fiber, and so forth. We received one bid for the project from Edge Commercial for $2,318,265. The engineer's estimate for the project was $1,590,000. So anytime we receive one bid and it is higher than the engineer's estimate, we look at it very carefully. Our team talked to the contractor, Edge Commercial, and the contractor that bid explained that they received further bids from subcontractors. 3 of those bids were within $100,000 of each other. And they also received 2 bids from mechanical subcontractors that were within $10,000 of each other. So we feel that there is, that those bids are close and competitive, and that gives us some comfort. So because those subcontractor bids were closely aligned, staff believes that the engineer's estimate is understated. And our recommendation is that the board award the SCADA backbone improvements contract to Edge Commercial in the amount of $2,318,265. Again, members of the Central Iowa Water Works Technical Committee were briefed on this recommendation.
I have it. I think we could do the motion in a second. Can I have a motion to award the 2026 Moines Water Works SCADA backbone improvements contract in the amount of $2,318,265 to Edge Commercial Inc. and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract?
So moved. Second.
Are there any other contractors that we would have anticipated submitting a bid or do this work in the area?
First, this is pretty specialized, so we had qualifications for the automation subcontractors. So we actually had 4 automation subcontractors looking at this and submitting their pricing to one general. We did reach out to another general during the bidding process to inform them it was out there, but they did not put in a bid. So the general is kind of gets everybody together, but then you have the specialized subcontractors.
Sure.
So having 4 look at it and being so close, it kind of just makes you, and we actually verified with HDR, who did the engineer's estimate, that they feel their estimate was low. And then we had 2 mechanicals, and that's primarily most of the work. Then you have some minor roofing and different things like that, building wise, that the general would take care of. The general scope is very small in comparison to like the automation.
We don't have any reason to believe that if we rejected all bids and rebid it, that we would have different results.
Okay. Did we think about bidding it separately? Or is there a reason why we bid both pieces of this together? Are they integrated? Do they need to?
As far as the mechanical, you're saying
Yeah.
automation, well, basically you're adding heat load in the building. And so you need to put more air conditioning. So kind of goes together, right? Cause and effect. And then you just have the one general overseeing the whole project. That's common to have multiple trades in a contract.
Lindsay, it sounds like the vast majority of the scope is those 2 trades, mechanical
Yeah,
and automation.
Yep.
Did we explore a scenario where one of the subcontractors, probably the mechanical subcontractor, would be prime? Did we ask them to bid as prime?
We don't ask them how to bid, you know, we
give them the
post it.
opportunity
Yeah,
to.
they have the opportunity to bid how they want.
So similar to, or I think Diane was going, is there an opportunity to, because I agree, if we rebid it, we probably would end up with the same result. If we rebid it as it is, we'd end up with the same result. Is there an opportunity to redesign, rescope the project so that generals are bidding on something different than the specs they were seeing here?
I'm not sure I completely follow, but the most of the work is the automation, the specialized work that we would need to do for the. So this, I'm not sure what I would change, I guess.
Well, what are you missing out on if you break it into three packages, just roughly here, that you have a general package, you have an automation and mechanical, and take it out to bid in three packages? What are you missing versus this scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the coordination for the whole project. Really kind of, the general gets involved because there's the basically kind of making it all come together, right? So you have your electrical sub that's what they do. You have the mechanical. So then it's a matter of you're coordinating between three contractors.
I would
Contracts.
also interject, there is a limitation in the public bidding statute that prevents separating contracts in order to avoid the public bidding threshold. Doesn't seem like that would happen for the automation and mechanical, but if the roofing and general contractor services ended up falling below the public bidding threshold, you could have a problem where it appears that you broke the contract into three parts in order to avoid public bidding the general contracting work. So I think there is a benefit to bidding it as a package in general as a habit, because it avoids ever running into that issue.
Thank you.
And just one comment, like if we look at the engineer's estimate and what the true cost for just the electrical and the, the automation and the mechanical, we would be at 2.24 million. And so it's like 3% difference than what they came in at. So I don't think we're getting gouged or, from the general, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's helpful to know that I took engineer's estimate to be our internal number. It's actually HDR's number.
Right, it's HDR's based on the package, the plans and specs and everything, yeah.
That makes me feel better.
Just from, I guess, understanding what we're doing here, when I see IT, OT, demilitarized zone, great word choice. Is that's like kind of in layman's terms saying like we create so someone can't be on the internet and access the ability to like open a valve or start changing stuff in operations, right? Like
That's
a
right.
simple way to say that is,
So a bad actor can't access us through the internet
the internet,
and
yeah.
and change our operation.
Just a reminder, this is like the first project in that whole master plan of, a 12-year project for SCADA. So we have to pull phases, I guess.
It's a big project.
So you'll get used to seeing it.
So, and we'll be reimbursed by
Yes,
CIWW for this project.
that's right.
Because we do this as the contractor.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
She's boarding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's so,
Aye.
Oh, great. Oh,
she must have got group 8 or something.
No. All right, that concludes our action items. We'll move on to the information items. Starting with board committee reports, finance and audit.
We had a session where we talked about customer collection processes and procedures and information. And I think it was just an informational session. It was not designed to give us background for a imminent board action.
Diane, thanks again for covering for me.
All right, planning committee.
And I'm next, I think. Yes, Amy kind of already hit on our, thanks to, oh, I'm on a plane. This is terrible timing. Tammy talked about the CIWW water use plan and Kyle made some comments. So before the speaker comes on again, that's it. Thank you. Oh, but how was the birthday celebration? Did anyone go? 65th birthday on Saturday?
Yes, it went very well.
Very good weather, which helped.
Yeah, yeah. Our team did a great job.
All right. Thanks, Emily. And yeah, I think the planning committee one, I think most of us attended that just because it was obviously pretty big with some of the stuff we just voted on in the water the action plan. So, board membership reports, Central Iowa Waterworks Board.
So in your packet is the March highlights, but we had the April meeting last Wednesday. So I'll quickly go through the highlights that we adopted the water use plan. And if you recall, under the 28E that we signed, we are required to follow that. That being said, part of what we put into the water use plan was the ability to seek waiver of certain provisions of the plan. If you recall, last year Grimes did not follow the lawn watering ban. They came forward this year and asked for a waiver.
Got something on your shirt.
Asked for a waiver of that provision, which they did not do last year. And that was brought before the board and it was accepted that we would waive that stage, the lawn watering ban stage for Grimes this year. So the rationale behind that is Grimes is not yet tied into the overall system. I think we have plans that it will be next year, that it will be tied in. It has some excess capacity, so we have every reason to want Grimes to be tied into the system. So they cannot help in any way with the nitrate level at this time. So I think a couple things changed from last year. One thing was that they came ahead of time and said, we'd like to make our case, which they did not do last year before the board. And we really didn't have a process for them to do it. So they came before the board. The other point that was made is if they have issues in Grimes with their plant, we can't use the rest of the system to help them. So it was decided that this year, or until they are tied in, that they will not be subject to the lawn watering ban. We asked that they message the conservation measures and all of the other, and they have agreed to that. And so that waiver was accepted by the board. We will be looking at some 28E F changes that I think primarily ones that relate to notice. When we did the 2080, we require 5 days notice of a board meeting. We don't know why we did that, but we're unable to have an emergency board meeting. We decided in the lawn use plan that when we go into the watering ban, we want to have, and it may be an emergency, we want to be able for the board to call that, make that call. So we need to have that change so that we can assemble the board. We'll do it upon recommendation from the technical committee, but it needs to be done. I think there was discussion, we finally decided that it would be the board, it was the board's responsibility to call the ban. But when the technical committee makes the recommendation and there's a time lag, then the press is in the meeting with the technical committee and calls it before the board has called it. So that was the situation that we're trying to figure out how to. So we decided that we would have concurrent meetings of the technical committee and the board, and the recommendation would be made at that time, and the board would take that into consideration. So we need to make that kind of notice change. There's a few things in finance that the the finance committee recommended. One is recognition of a treasurer. We didn't have a treasurer in the 2080. And your treasurer of CIWW is Amy Kaler. She's doing a very good job. So they're not controversial.
And they are included in the board packet.
Yeah,
So if anybody would like to, pull one out to
sure.
ask for background,
Yeah.
Diane and I can.
Yeah, and we haven't
Cover that.
voted on those yet. They've been put out there for everybody to look at.
In order for these, this language to be changed in the 28E, it requires every member agency's governing body to approve. And it must be unanimous on the CIWW board. So all member agencies must approve or authorize these amendments. And so we're not asking, obviously for action at this board meeting, but if there is something that you are concerned about or feel like you could not support, we certainly want to,
Let us know.
work through that or understand so that these, the 28E amendments don't get hung up on a concern that we could have rectified.
So what is the background then for the weighted voting amendment being with notice and now at any time before?
I don't remember why that.
I think it's really just, if there is a conversation or a discussion at a board meeting and a member agency would like to call a weighted vote on that, then they're, they would like the mechanism to do that. And I would note that this actually works to our benefit.
As we can call it. without
We could
notice.
call it if we wanted to, and we have 2 out of 13 when it's just a straight vote, but we have over 40%. I didn't do the math for 2 out of 13 members, but I know it's less than 40%. And so we have over 40% if we go to a weighted vote. And so I don't think that this will be misused or, I don't know that it will be requested, certainly very often, but I think it actually is beneficial to us.
It just had me thinking, if in the heat of the moment, we need to move to a weighted vote as opposed to a standard vote, then wouldn't that trigger somebody to think that maybe we needed more conversations on the topic, or it needed to be reflected more on? Because right now, if you wanted to vote on the subject matter, you can vote on the subject matter. It might be eligible for a weighted vote, but it not necessary. So you may vote on it right now. Normally, if someone wants a weighted vote, there might be some sort of issue there, right? That they don't want to just vote. Normally, they want it to be weighted.
Yeah, I think that would be evident through the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that it would, the agenda item would arise and then someone would declare a weighted vote on it. There is good discussion, I think, at that board level. And so I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure it's
I articulated it well.
I don't know that there's a huge risk, I guess, or a negative impact.
So the way we have been doing this with the reps and the CIWW is we meet with staff before we go into the meeting, and we go over all of the agenda items, so we have really good understanding of.
But when you say we, you mean the executive.
No, I mean the Des Moines reps meet.
Or the Des Moines reps.
We meet with our staff here.
Right.
Go through all the agenda items.
Okay.
To understand if there are different points of view, difficulty, pieces that we should understand before we get in there to vote. So I think that if we wanted to call a weighted vote, we would certainly.
I would also call out that the call for a weighted vote requires 2 or more members. So a single member cannot demand a weighted vote. So there has to be at least a
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
consensus that a
So
vote is
I
needed.
think that takes care of. And I
It's a
think it
safeguard.
was in the discussion when we did that, that we didn't want to have that heat of the moment
Right.
kind of thing. So you had to have at least one other party that you had talked to.
And then another amendment, because you can call a weighted vote at any time, it removes the requirement to put weighted vote necessary on the agenda. You wouldn't be able to do that if it were called in. So,
Yeah.
that was removed. So,
The other thing that we did last month is we authorized the technical committee to enter stage 1 and stage 2, to initiate stage 1 and stage 2 on an as-needed basis. Those stages are both voluntary reductions, not mandatory. So the board did place that back at the technical committee. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it. Any
Ben?
questions?
All right, and Park Foundation.
So the Park Foundation board did not have a regular meeting this past month. They used that time for a strategic planning session, which I saw as a very helpful guide for the foundation board to come together and highlight a path or the guide forward for what they should be focusing on with their time, capacity, and funding into 2026, 2027. That being said, there's not much to report at this time from the Park Foundation discussions, other than what was noted with the Earth Day celebration this past weekend, and that their concert season is getting underway with the first one being on May 7th.
You?
I think, can I go back to Central Iowa Water Works for a minute? I just want to highlight something that is in the March in those notes, and that is that we did enter into an agreement with Analytics. The firm out of Omaha who is going to help us to put together a smart irrigation project. So that has all begun, and we are moving forward as quickly as we can. I think that we get some help from our data and metering people here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, CEO and General Manager.
Hey, I have quite a few this evening, so I'll try to be brief on each one. And the first one that I'll start with, Amy Beatty is with us with the Stowe Foundation. You may have noticed if you drive through the park, there is a sign announcing that that work will commence very soon. So we're excited for that construction. There are some details being worked out between the Stowe Foundation and the Park Foundation, just on coordination of work. The Stowe Foundation, as part of a permit requirement, needs to do some excavation in an area of the park that the Park Foundation will be constructing gardens in, which is just, I gotta get my directions, west, this is west, right? West of the Ruan Connector entrance on our park side. And so we're working through those details as a 3-party. And once we get those worked out, we'll be excited to see that construction start. Q1 metrics are included in your packet. You might recall this is a year that we have no we completed our strategic plan in 2025. It was the sunset year. And so we are going through an RFP process, and I'll have more information to share at a future meeting. But we're going through an RFP process for a facilitated strategic planning initiative again in 2026 this year. But while we are going through that process of developing our next plan, we don't really have a strategic plan to tie KPIs, key performance indicators, and so forth too. And one of the goals that I have for Des Moines Waterworks is to do more performance measurements, performance management. And so each department developed metrics that were important to them or the utility overall. And those metrics are listed in your packet along with Q1 results and some comments. And you'll notice that there are more comments than Q1 results, and that's because some of these metrics we've never measured before. And so we're figuring out how, what system or process do we need in place in order to measure them. And so we're working on those where you see a blank in that metric summary. This will be the focus at the Finance and Audit meeting in early May. And so I'll save really the detail and the good stuff for that meeting. Each SMT will share why this is important to their area or the utility. And we'll go from there. I also wanted to share the next two items go together. I was in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, as you recall, and for the Association of Municipal Water Agencies, which is AMWA. They had a policy conference and a DC fly-in. And so I had the opportunity to meet with our congressional delegation staff. And then I also met with Congressman Nunn and had a good conversation. And he shared during that meeting that he has recommended our lead service line project for a congressionally directed spending. We submitted an application for $2.5 million to his office and his team, and he shared that he supports that. And so he'll be forwarding that to a House committee that will ultimately be asked to authorize or approve that. So that is really good news for our customers who need lead service line replacements. Every amount helps as we put together our program. As you remember, we talked about the funding and the program in general at a prior Finance and Audit meeting, and it's going to be taking funding from different sources. So this is a really positive development. It's still not final. There's still some action that needs to be taken, but we appreciate the consideration. The policy conference and fly-in overall, I thought were very good. The EPA spoke a lot, talked about some upcoming comment periods that they have and some new programs that they have. In researching those, the new programs primarily relate to smaller size utilities or in disadvantaged communities. But the resources that the EPA is offering to those utilities that don't deal with funding, we can still take advantage of and leverage. And so we'll be paying special attention to some of those opportunities. There is a memo in the packet, some of the key takeaways and some of the issues that the policy conference touched on. So that's in there for you to read. I won't read it to you. Legislatively, from a state perspective, we are still really pushing for the water quality monitors. The last I knew, there was an appropriation of $300,000 in one of the appropriations bills. And so we are strongly supporting that and still working that. You might recall we requested $500,000 because that is what it has taken in the past. This is a tight budget, and so while it's disappointing that it may not be fully funded, any amount is better than nothing. So we continue to monitor that carefully. And the other bill that we are actively monitoring, and Des Moines Waterworks is not yet take advantage of this vehicle, but Central Iowa Waterworks does, and that is IPATE, the Iowa Public Agency Investment Trust, I believe. There is a bill that would cap public entities' investments in IPATE at 25% of their funds. And that is a concern. The IPATE returns are generally higher than what you would find in the market. So we think that's an important tool to continue to be able to leverage. So we continue to oppose that bill that would cap that. That's all right. This is why I have a backup, Michelle. I wanted to give an operational update. And it's a lot. And of course, I want to start by thanking our operational team. This is a stressful time for operations, and they bear that burden on behalf of the community. So we've got the best and the brightest, I'm convinced, on our team, and I am very appreciative, as I know we all are. So operationally, the last 3 days have been around 46 million gallons per day. As it gets cooler and wetter, of course, demand we can see decrease a little bit. Thank you. Good job. Last year at this time, we were seeing about 60.5 million gallons per day. So once it warms up or dries up, we will see demand potentially shift very, very quickly. As lawn watering is layered into those demands. So the status can change. At our Fluor water treatment plant, we're seeing nitrate concentrations persistently above 10 milligrams per liter in all both rivers and the infiltration gallery. Today it was around 12, I think 11 and 12. It has come down a little bit in the last couple of days, but that is most likely due to dilution because of the rain. I think we expect it to pop back up. We are running today 5 nitrate removal vessels. We bounce a little bit between 5 and 6. Remember, we have 8, but one is always in a maintenance mode, regenerating. And so we have 7 that we can run. So we are getting near capacity in our nitrate removal facility. At the McMullen water treatment plant, of course, we don't have nitrate removal treatment. We rely on blending. Crystal Lake is, one of our water sources at McMullen water treatment plant. And the water level is low and the nitrate levels are relatively high. We are filling Crystal Lake about as much as we are withdrawing from Crystal Lake for the treatment process. And Maffett Reservoir, our emergency backup supply is about as low as we've seen. We estimate that we have used about 40% of that emergency backup supply.
Just this year, sorry.
Yes, to deal with high nitrates.
What impact does that have on just the recreational side of?
Ooh.
the park?
I don't know. They can still float boats, can't they?
Yeah, the shoreline has certainly moved in quite a ways. We're down about 5.5 to 6 feet down, but the shoreline would be much farther in on that regard. So there's
Zero
still,
entry.
yeah, there, you can still do it, but you'll be walking through areas that are underwater, normally underwater.
We talked a little bit about the ASRs earlier. As of today, as Nathan said, injections have restarted because we're taking advantage of this lower demand. So these are regional ASRs, remember. 2 are filled 90 to 95%, and 1 is filled 75%, McMullen 1, and that will have repairs next week, new pump installed and so forth. So we're trying to fill as much as we can, but they may not get entirely full. The Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee met on Monday. As Diane said, the board, Central Iowa Waterworks Board, initiated stages 1 and 2, which essentially pre-authorizes the technical committee to move into those voluntary stages as they deem necessary. The technical committee elected not at this time to move into stage one. So we remain at stage 0 as of today. And so we are communicating follow water use best practices. And really a primary message is delay lawn watering. We do not need to be watering lawns. They're very green, take advantage of rain, and so just, be a good steward of our water.
Although I think we have all seen some watering taking place.
We have, I haven't in the last week or so, but was it in March or early in April that it was, hot and we were seeing irrigation then, so. Of course, we monitor it very, very carefully, so we will continue to do that.
Can we, I'm actually surprised to hear that there's any irrigation. I haven't seen any. I guess it doesn't. I mean,
I haven't seen any lately, but when it was, remember that weekend, it was almost 90?
yeah.
We saw irrigation then.
It was very hot like a month
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Well,
Iowa.
I guess my ultimate question is, if we are already where we are with water access concerns, and we really even haven't begun to hit irrigation time. I mean, I guess I don't have a question. I guess it's a redundant statement to emphasize how concerning this is. May is still pretty cool and wet, but we maybe have a month before everybody starts filling pools and splash pads open, everybody starts watering everything. I guess, what happens next?
We follow the plan. We educate, we monitor carefully, and, we are ready to move into stage 1. Stage 1 is to voluntarily, we're trying to reduce lawn watering by 25%. And for all practical purposes, stage 1, if the Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee had called stage 1, there would be no reduction because there's no lawn watering. So there's really no opportunity to reduce. But the committee knows that they could be called really very quickly as conditions change. And, I will say I sit in on those meetings. I'm not on the committee, but it's very thoughtful exchange, and people share different perspectives. So it's a healthy conversation.
I guess it's okay. Now with a little bit more time to think about my question. My concern is that the idea of a stage 1 that would potentially get us a 25% reduction was floated because of the concerning place that we are in. But we didn't do a stage 1 because nobody's even irrigating yet. So my concern is we're in a stage 1 right now because of our current conditions. We just haven't announced it because stage 1 just impacts irrigation. By the time we actually get to a real stage 1, problem will be much worse. Does that make sense? Am I speaking correctly?
I understand what you're saying.
And so by the time we get to July, if we're already running nitrates at full capacity, if we're already concerned that if people were irrigating, we'd be asking them to stop irrigating when they are in full-fledged irrigation, and the situation gets worse because generally speaking, we don't have nitrate problems in March, April. We have them in July, August. So by the time we get to July and August, I guess I'm anticipating us being in the mandatory, everybody rations their water because we're already so bad and it's not been hot, it's not been dry, and nobody has been irrigating yet. So I guess I'm on a verbal dump here to say I'm very concerned that we're running nitrate systems right now. We're even talking about a stage 1, but we can't because there's nothing to turn off but we need it. And just thinking through, not just being prepared with our water use plan, but being prepared that we probably will get to a stage 4, right? I mean, the,
Stage 3 is the
yeah, so,
ban.
so potentially even a stage 4 of rationing this year. Is there anything else besides telling people to turn off their irrigation that we are doing or talking about to make sure that we don't get to that stage 4 come July?
I don't think there's, one of the things that I could be wrong, experts, obviously, I'm not one, but I like rationing, conserving lawn watering now doesn't particularly help us in July, right?
Right.
So
That's
I think that's, to me, really the best, the only thing we really be doing is the communication and the messaging. And so I was saying to Amy, it's like, you know, it's telling people and telling the news, it's like, it's not a matter of if, it's when we go into a lawn watering ban this summer based on what we're seeing now. So hopefully no one's surprised when it
Right.
happens in July or probably May.
I guess my concern is lawn watering isn't gonna fix the problem in July, because we already have a problem. And we don't have the situations that we have in July. We already have high nitrates and low available clean water. And we haven't even factored in irrigation, high temperatures, and dryness. So,
right.
I don't know, maybe I'm just going on
I don't think
worked up right
anybody
now,
disagrees
but-
with you. That is the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we just have to work together as a region to get through it. But it is true that we are in a worse position than we were last year at this time. So we are heading into peak season in a worse position from an emergency water supply perspective. The persistent high nitrates, you know, we've been running the facility virtually all year long.
Right.
A week break perhaps, but.
So I don't know this year, yeah, you know, looking at the way things have been going.
Mhm.
And I mean, we don't know what the weather's gonna be. We don't know if it's gonna be cool, rainy, and we may be able to avoid this. We don't know. But if we look at long-term things that we're putting into effect, we've allocated the money for an additional vessel,
Right.
nitrate removal.
We are doing a study on nitrate removal facility at the Fluor Drive. Yep.
Mhm. And we are really ramping up the information that we get out to people about things that they can do. And those will be long-term things.
Mhm.
The shorter term thing that we're doing is this aqualytics.
Sure.
But with where we are this year with that project, it's not gonna be enough to
Right.
avoid. It is something that will give us a lot of data. We'll have a better understanding. And, you know, I mean, I think last year when we went into the water ban and we saw the demand drop 30 to 40%. I mean, we don't have the capability to do any finer management of our water than a ban. And when we do that, we lose revenue.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Which is also a
So,
consideration and
right.
concern.
And I always say, you know, we have no incentive to,
Mhm.
when people want to say, well, you did this, we want to sell water.
Right.
So we're just gonna have to continue aggressively those things that we can do, which is education. We may long-term put some more programs in place. Hopefully we will.
Right.
Data, looking at data and doing this, trying to get those peaks so that they are shifted to different days, different hours. That will give us the ability to manage that better. And as many communities have done in the West, we're gonna
Right.
have to be a lot more aggressive.
And that's
about
what,
those
and
things.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, I think at the last meeting, I was saying, what happens when we live in the water use plan? And I guess I'm repeating it again today with much more passion and enthusiasm, because it seems like we are headed to that path where if we're running the nitrate removal system essentially all year long already, and it hasn't even hit the points where historically we would think about turning it on. And we're, as Amy said, in a worse place right now than we were this time last year. I'm anticipating that we are going to be in a similar situation, maybe not for the same reasons, but in a similar situation with water access as some of those Western neighbors. And, you know, looking at things like the ASR well and the studies, I think those are good solutions that we need to also be identifying more solutions than just education. I guess is ultimately what I'm trying to get at is we need a solution beyond hoping that people feel empowered by our messaging, because it's a very big concern that doesn't seem to be getting better.
Right.
And telling in our current water use plan directed at irrigation, when it feels like we are ready to enter the water use plan and we haven't even turned on irrigation, we need to find new solutions that aren't just asking people to use water conservatively and don't irrigate, because it's not going to actually move the needle on our problem.
Our issue here is the quality. It's not at this point the quantity of water, although we might get there. It's the quality of water, and that's why we have to do the upstream things. I don't know how fast those
Take a long time.
they take a long time. So we are gonna be
But
but when you think about this, we have pretty quickly gone from use all the water you want. It's cheap, you know, don't worry about it, to this situation. That is a pretty abrupt change for people to wrap their heads around.
Right.
So we've been doing things like everybody change their rates so that the more
Right.
you use, the more it costs. And I think we're gonna have to get into this, you know, these best practice things where we may want to change out toilets. And we
Right.
may want to put a program out there to do that.
Right.
There are a number of things that we can do.
Right. And I would say, but I would say that, yes, it is a water, let me start again.
Quality.
I would say our water quality problem has turned this into a water quantity problem.
Sure.
Because we can have all the water in the world, but if we can't touch it or drink it, it really doesn't matter. We don't have any useful water. And I don't know if, you know, semantics would move any needles for anyone in the policy or funding or programming world. But I really would say at this time, we are looking at our water quantity problem.
They're closely related.
Yep.
Yes.
Water quality and quantity. I also think the regional expansions, treatment capacity expansions, you know, those are nitrate resilient. Those will offer additional capacity to the region. All of these are multiple years away. Nothing that I can point to
right.
that is a solution this year outside of strong messaging, follow the plan. But those things are in progress for sure.
Thank you.
Great points. Nobody here disagrees. I wanted to congratulate our new union leadership. They recently had elections, and so chapter chair is Jared Albers. He is often here. He's not here tonight. Vice Chair Taylor Gruis, Secretary Luke Johnson, and Treasurer Tanya Smith. So I wanted to recognize, you might see some new faces as they join our board meeting in future months. So congratulations to them. And I also want to recognize Bill Blubaugh for sure for many years. I don't know how many years he was president. And also Lori Leo served as secretary. So thank them for their service. This is, I was very honored and privileged to be present when David Gross received business record 40 under 40 as an honoree. He looks here either presidential or like he's on the Tonight Show. I'm not sure which that is, but it was a great honor to have him recognized, knowing that he represents this board. And I think it's a great reflection on his dedication to the organizations that he serves and the community. So I wanted to publicly recognize you in case anybody missed the announcement that you found that.
Thanks, Tammy. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. I think I'll be done. In your packet is a safety memo. We have 3 injuries to date and 4 vehicle accidents. So Dylan has provided a good summary here. I will mention that we have reset the safety committee, and it met for its first. We've had a series of meetings where we called it Reimagine, just to kind of re-energize the group and make sure that we are meeting our employees' needs. And our mission statement or our purpose statement is turning safety conversations into action so everybody goes home safely. And so that might be something that we can share a little bit more detail about as we move forward. But it's a very passionate and engaged group. Also, in the packet, Melissa has provided a public affairs update. So I'll let you read that. A lot of good stuff on there. And our contract summary brings up the end of the packet.
Amy and everyone for your time. Discussion as always, and we will see you all back here next month. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Did I miss it? Attribute anything. Okay, perfect. Nobody will argue about.
I know. The other board I'm on, there's like.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I don't know that we ever.
We should.